Hey, are you new to the sport of Supercross and Motocross? Or would like to but don't know where to get started? Well, my name is BJ, and I'm a new fan of SMX. So join me as we learn more about the sport together. So first of all, what is SMX? As you probably gathered from all those clips, it's dirt bike racing in general, at least dirt bike racing here in America. Specifically, SMX is an acronym for Super Motocross. And I know it's not a strict acronym because the X actually doesn't stand for anything, it's just their way of saying cross. And you'll notice that a lot with this sport. SX for Supercross, MX for Motocross, FMX for Freestyle Motocross, WMX for Women's Motocross, not to be confused with WSX for World Supercross. You'll eventually get used to all these new abbreviations. Now, when you're new to a sport, sometimes there's a big learning curve, and you need to ask some of those basic questions that seem obvious to everyone else.
I'm the great Bambino. Oh!
Who's that?
What?
I had no idea who they were talking about.
What did he say? What, were you born in a barn, man?
Yeah, what planet are you from?
So the purpose of my channel is to help noobs get familiar with the sport and have a safe place to ask these questions. Now, even though I'm new too, I do have a little bit of an advantage because my dad was a casual fan when I was a kid. So some of the names and places do sound familiar to me. But to the chagrin of my dad, I was a big fan of those bad influences like Metal Militia and Brian Deegan.
Representing all that is evil in the world, Brian Deegan, busting the mini spikes.
And I liked freestyle motocross. All those things we can go over in a future video too. Well, fast forward 20 years, and now Brian Deegan has a son named Hayden Deegan, and he's dominating in the 250 class. So because of that, and watching his YouTube channel, I started to get introduced to the sport, and it looked interesting. And I've been an active fan for about a year now. And I remember when I first started, a lot of the things they said just kind of went over my head. I could tell the names and the things that they were talking about had a lot of history to them. And as I started learning about that, it became even more and more interesting to me. So I hope this channel can help others get up to speed faster, and that we can start creating a community of other SMX fans. Because even though I live in Salt Lake City, Utah, I don't have a whole lot of SMX fans in my life. I know people who like to go riding because Utah is definitely one of the best states to go riding in. Even though they ride dirt bikes, they don't really follow SMX. Even though Salt Lake is the final round of the Supercross Championship, you think it would be a bigger deal here than it is. And even though this channel is for beginners, I do hope that those experienced fans and people who know a lot about the sport also watch, so they can help correct the things I get wrong and help answer a lot of our questions. Now, there are two different race classes that you need to be familiar with, the 250 and the 450 classes. Now, a 250 bike and a 450 bike look very familiar dimension-wise. The only difference is the power of the engine. The 250 and 450 numbers relate to the size of the displacement, either the 250cc or 450cc on a 4-stroke dirt bike. The 250 class is comprised of mostly younger riders that are trying to prove they have what it takes to get up to the 450 class. And sometimes you might hear this class referred to as the lights class, whereas the 450 class is comprised of mostly old 250 champions. So everyone there is really good, so it takes a lot of talent to make it into the 450 class, or it's also referred to as the premier class. Now, a thing to keep in mind is that historically, When riders used to ride two-stroke dirt bikes, it was called the 125 and 250 class respectively. And this can get a little confusing when they're comparing past records to current records. We can do a whole episode about the change from two-stroke to four-stroke engines, but just keep that in mind for now. But when I say SMX specifically, I'm talking about an overarching championship that's happening all year long. SMX has a total of 31 rounds, but it's divided into 3 championships: Supercross, Motocross, and then the Super Motocross Finals. The AMA Supercross Championship happens at the beginning of the year, usually January through May. It consists of 17 rounds, and these dirt bike races happen inside stadiums. Sometimes it's called the Indoor Championship, even though not all these stadiums are indoors only. But anyway, these stadiums are usually a football stadium or baseball stadium, and they'll haul in dirt and build a track temporarily on the grass. And then when they're done, they haul it all away. These tracks are very technical, with big jumps and obstacles that can be very challenging and dangerous to the riders. This is one of the most dangerous sports. But because these happen in major sporting arenas, if you look at all the names of the cities, they're in big metropolitan areas. That means lots of fans can go and see the race. They get a lot bigger crowds and make a lot of money from it. And the riders get rewarded with points if they win each individual race. But more importantly, they want to get championship points. Riders accumulate championship points throughout all 17 rounds. And the points winner at the end becomes that year's Supercross champion. Now we're less than a month away from this year's Supercross season. It starts on January 10th. So we'll do a video when it gets a little bit closer to that too. Next is the AMA Motocross Championship. That happens during the summer, usually from May through August. It consists of 11 rounds. But unlike Supercross, these dirt bike races happen on permanent tracks and on the natural terrain that the land is on. These type of tracks are the ones that most of us who ride dirt bikes have ridden on. You're only going to ride a Supercross track if you're actually getting into racing. The tracks are usually longer and more open. The high speeds and longer races challenge their skills and endurance. Because these are on permanent tracks, they usually happen in the middle of nowhere, so the crowds are smaller. But because it takes a lot of effort to get there, the ones that do go are very dedicated, and the crowd can get pretty rowdy. But like in Supercross, riders accumulate championship points through the 11 rounds, and the rider at the end that has the most points becomes that year's motocross champion. Now it's common for the motocross champion and the Supercross champion to be different, and it's a true sign of dominance if you can win both. That's because Supercross and Motocross, they require different skills, and some riders are just more naturally talented for one or the other. And there's always been a debate on who is the best dirt bike racer. Now a name that will come up often is Ricky Carmichael. He's widely considered the greatest of all time. But that sentence is always followed up for, except for at Supercross, that was Jeremy McGrath. And Jeremy McGrath was rightfully called the king of Supercross. By a long shot, McGrath holds the records for the most Supercross wins and Supercross championships. But he wasn't the most naturally talented at motocross.
I'll say this, and I always say this, 2 or 3 years into my pro career, I still had no idea how to ride a motocross track. Yeah, I could race Supercross, but in motocross, I was not good.
As for Ricky Carmichael, he really was unmatched when it came to motocross. But he definitely didn't start out that way in Supercross.
Carmichael once again on those vicious ropes. Oh, Ricky!
Oh, he landed.
Oh, and he gets smacked very hard.
And with a lot of work, he eventually mastered Supercross as well.
So people always say, look what you did, RC, you ruined it. You got everyone's training now. And I blame MC because he was so good. For me to be able to beat him, I had to overwork because I lacked on the bike ability.
In future videos, I'm sure we'll go over some of those legends of the sport in more detail. But get used to hearing at least McGrath and Carmichael a lot in the broadcast. And I feel like to answer the whole Supercross Motocross debate, they created the Super Motocross Championship, or SMX. This happens at the end of the season in September. It's only 3 rounds long, and the tracks are supposed to be a hybrid between Supercross and Motocross tracks. And how riders qualify to get into the SMX Championship is based on the amount of points they got from the Supercross and Motocross combined. And the rider who is best at these hybrid tracks and accumulate the most points will become the Super Motocross champion. Only time will tell how effective it is at figuring out who the best rider is overall, because the championship only started in 2023. So we've only had 3 years of SMX. So far, a rider named Jet Lawrence has been the 450 SMX champion every single year. He's still young, but he's already establishing himself as one of the greats. All the legends seem to get a nickname, like Ricky Carmichael is the GOAT, McGrath is the king of Supercross. One of my favorite riders is James Stewart, and he was called the fastest man on the planet. So I don't know what they'll call Jet if he is one of the legends, but he is Gen Z, so I feel he should kind of have a nickname that's familiar to him. My vote is for Sigma Boy. It's an exciting time in the sport right now because they're making changes that will eventually become long-standing traditions. But if you think about it, at the end of an SMX season, a rider has the potential to win 3 championships. Now, no single rider has done that yet, but we'll see this year. But I do have a question for established fans. I was noticing that it's officially called SMX World Championship. But how is that a world championship? All the races are in the USA. And even AMA stands for American Motocross Association. It doesn't get much more American than that. Or is this just another example of American exceptionalism where we think we're better than everyone else? I mean, we kind of do suffer from main character syndrome. The only thing that would justify it as a world championship is that a lot of the races are international. But that's true with other championships around the world too. Like in Europe, they have the MXGP, or like World Supercross. I mean, they go from Canada all the way to Argentina to Australia. I feel like those ones have more reason to be called world championships than SMX does. And the last question you might have is, how can I watch it? And unfortunately, this is one of the big complaints I have about SMX so far. You have to get Peacock streaming service. They have the exclusive rights to all the races. And I hate it being behind a paywall like that. I mean, if you want to get new fans into it, you need to make it accessible. Even when I've convinced some of my friends and coworkers to give it a shot, they always ask, oh, how do I watch it? And I tell them, oh, Peacock. And they say, oh, I don't have that one. Which is fair. I didn't have it either until SMX. And it's literally the only thing I watch on there. Of course, I don't watch any other sports, so let me know, is SMX the only thing you guys watch on Peacock? Or do they have other sports on there? But unfortunately, I don't really like the app for Peacock either. I don't feel it's very intuitive with navigation, and the algorithm is pretty much non-existent. So check it out with me. Now, I've only ever used this to watch SMX races. So you'd think with any decent algorithm, it would recommend the most recent races to me. But no, I always have to go search for it. Now, don't go type SMX in the search bar. That brings up completely different stuff. You want to type in Supercross or Motocross to get there. But I have found an easier way to get there. So you click on the sports and look for their logo. Luckily, it's kind of green and it stands out from the other ones. Watching the races live is kind of difficult. I feel limited. You can only rewind back so far. And then if you pause it for, I swear, like more than 3 seconds, it kicks you out and then you have to start all over again and rewind back to the place you're at. I actually find it easier just to watch it the next day. So my piece of advice to the people who are in charge of SMX, now, if you want to make the sport more popular, try to make it accessible on multiple streaming services, or at least really popular ones that people already have. Sometimes they do air it on NBC, but that's few and far between. But if you do want to start following and not buy anything, you can watch the highlight reels on YouTube. Motorsports on NBC puts out fairly good overviews of the races. Now, I did this for about 6 months before finally biting the bullet and getting Peacock. Anyway, let me know what you think and what questions you have for future videos. And I want to know if you're a fan of the sport and how long you've been a fan for, and where you're from. And bear with me, I'm new to YouTube too, so I'm learning how to post these things and record them with better quality. So thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.